I often wonder if the night has a voice of its own, a whisper that calls out to the unsuspecting, drawing them deeper into the shadows. Do you hear it too? My name is Ethan Carter, and on that fateful night in early October, I found myself driving through the desolate roads of Pine Ridge, a small town nestled in the heart of Colorado. I had just visited my mother, and as I made my way back home to Denver, I took a shortcut, a decision I would come to regret. It was supposed to be a simple drive, one I had made countless times before, but the weather was shifting. Dark clouds rolled in, casting an oppressive gloom over the landscape. The highway stretched before me, empty and foreboding, like a yawning chasm waiting to swallow me whole. I felt a shiver run down my spine, but I dismissed it as merely a reaction to the cold air creeping in through the cracked window. As I turned off the main road, the asphalt beneath me became rougher, flanked by dense trees that loomed like silent sentinels. Pine Ridge was known for its beautiful, peaceful surroundings, but in that moment, I felt anything but at peace. The night was unsettlingly quiet, an eerie stillness that made my heart race. I could almost hear the forest breathing around me, an invisible entity watching my every move. It was then that the radio began to sputter. At first, a soft crackle interrupted the silence, but soon it morphed into something more sinister. A voice, low and distant, seeped through the static. "Can you hear me?" it asked, sending a cold rush of fear through me. I quickly turned off the radio, trying to shake off the sensation of being watched, but the feeling only intensified. I pushed forward, the trees closing in on either side, the road twisting like a serpent through the dark. The headlights sliced through the gloom, illuminating patches of dirt and gravel as if daring me to continue. Each turn felt like a descent into an abyss, the shadows growing thicker, wrapping around my car like a shroud. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was no longer alone, and then I saw him, a figure standing at the edge of the road. I slowed down, my instincts screaming at me to keep driving, but something compelled me to stop. He appeared ordinary enough, tall and thin, dressed in a dark coat that fluttered slightly in the cold wind. But as I peered closer, I noticed the way he stood, almost too still, as if he were part of the night itself. "Are you going somewhere?" I asked, my voice barely breaking through the heavy silence. He turned his head, and for a moment I caught a glimpse of his eyes, too large, too wide, as if they had seen too much. "If it's not too much trouble," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper, a sound that seemed to curl around my ears like smoke. I felt a knot form in my stomach, an instinctive warning that this was a mistake. I unlocked the door, and he slid into the passenger seat with an unsettling grace. As we resumed the drive, the air thickened with tension. I tried to make small talk, asking where he was headed, hoping to break the oppressive silence that filled the car. "Just a dark place," he murmured, his gaze fixed ahead, unblinking. The more I spoke, the more I felt his presence weighing down on me, each word slipping into the void between us. I attempted to shake off the feeling, to convince myself that I was being paranoid. After all, I had picked up a hitchhiker, something that most people do without a second thought. But it was as if the shadows themselves were closing in, whispering secrets in a language I couldn't understand. Then there were the whispers again, low and chilling, echoing through the confines of the car. "Do you hear that?" I asked, heart pounding in my chest. The man turned to me, his expression unchanged, and repeated the words that had haunted my radio moments before. "Can you hear me?" Panic surged through me. I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something lurking behind me. Instead, I saw only darkness. The trees seemed to reach out, their twisted branches clawing at the air, as if they were trying to pull me back into their depths. The road felt endless, stretching out in front of me like a cruel joke. The tension was unbearable, and I could feel my mind racing. Memories of childhood fears crept into my thoughts, stories of things that lived in the dark, creatures that fed on fear and despair. My mother used to tell me those tales to keep me from wandering too far at night. But here I was, an adult, facing my own fears head-on, all because of a momentary lapse in judgment. Yet, as the whispers grew louder, I realized they were not just in my head. They were real, resonating within the confines of the car, twisting into a cacophony of incoherent words. "Don't stop. The road never ends. He's watching." My breath caught in my throat as I felt the urge to scream, to throw the man out of my car and flee into the night. But I was paralyzed, trapped in my own terror. Suddenly he turned to me, his face illuminated by the headlights. I froze as I saw his mouth move, but no sound came out. The whispers continued to swirl around us, drowning out my thoughts. I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing against the glass, as if it were trying to invade the safety of my car. And then everything fell apart. I tried to steer clear of the road, but my hands trembled violently on the wheel. The car skidded, tires screeching against the wet asphalt, and I lost control. The last thing I saw was his twisted smile, teeth sharp and jagged, as the world around me faded to black. When I came to, I was alone. The car lay in a crumpled heap at the bottom of a ditch, rain pattering softly against the metal. I blinked against the brightness of the morning sun filtering through the trees. The air felt different, lighter, but I still felt the heaviness in my chest. I glanced over at the passenger seat, and my stomach dropped. The fabric was indented, as though someone had just been sitting there, whispering secrets in the dark. But that wasn't the worst of it. Even in the stillness of the aftermath, I heard it. Soft, sinister, a whisper brushing against my ear. "Can you hear me?" I stumbled out of the wreck, my heart racing, and as I stood there in the clearing, I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was still watching, waiting for me to turn around and discover the truth. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. I stumbled back from the wreckage of my car, my heart racing as I took in the scene around me. The quiet of the forest felt almost mocking, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. I tried to gather my thoughts, to piece together what had happened, but the whirlwind of confusion clouded my mind. I was alone, yet the whispers lingered, curling around my consciousness like a vine, tightening with every breath. I took a step forward, the ground muddy beneath my shoes, and felt a sudden chill race up my spine. The air was thick with moisture, and the scent of pine mixed with the rain-soaked earth. I scanned the area, half expecting to see that figure emerge from the trees, that twisted smile lurking just beyond my line of sight. But there was nothing, just the oppressive silence of the woods. As I turned to survey the damage to my car, a voice broke the stillness. "Ethan!" I whipped around, my heart dropping as I recognized the voice. It was Sarah, my childhood friend, and someone I hadn't seen in years. She emerged from the trees, concern etched on her face. "What happened? Are you okay?" "Sarah?" I stammered, disbelief flooding through me. "What are you doing here?" "I was hiking nearby. I saw your car in the ditch. I thought..." Her eyes widened as she took in the wreck. "Oh my God, Ethan. You could have been seriously hurt." "I know," I said, rubbing my temples. "But I'm fine. I think, the memory of the hitchhiker and the whispers clawed at my mind, but I pushed them aside. I picked up a guy on the road, and things got out of hand." "A hitchhiker? Are you insane? You shouldn't pick up strangers." Sarah's voice was a mixture of anger and worry, but her expression softened as she approached me. "What do you mean things got out of hand?" I hesitated, grappling with how to explain the unexplainable. He was different. Something felt off. The whispers. I trailed off, unsure how to articulate the weight pressing against my chest. "Whispers?" Sarah echoed, brow furrowing. "Ethan, You hit your head or something? Maybe you're just disoriented." "No, I swear, it was real." The radio was acting up and he just sat there staring. Then everything went dark. Her expression shifted, a mix of skepticism and concern. "Okay, let's just get out of here. We can call for help." As we made our way back to the road, I noticed her glancing nervously at the trees, as if they might come alive at any moment. "You really think it's safe to just leave?" I asked, unease creeping back into my voice. "I think it's safer than staying here," she replied, her tone firm. "We can't just sit here and wait for something else to happen." We walked in silence, the crunch of leaves and mud beneath our feet the only sound accompanying us. Despite the morning light filtering through the canopy, the shadows felt deeper, more menacing. Each rustle in the underbrush sent my heart racing anew, and I could feel Sarah's tension radiating beside me. Finally, I couldn't contain it any longer. "Sarah, did you ever hear any stories about this place? Ghosts or things that lurk in the dark?" She shot me an incredulous look. "Are you serious? This is Colorado, not some horror movie setting. But I know there are legends about the woods, people going missing, strange sightings. Nothing concrete, just local folklore." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. "I think it's more than just folklore," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I think something is out here, something that doesn't want us to leave." "Ethan, stop! You're freaking me out," she said, her voice wavering. "Let's just focus on finding help. We can talk about this later." As we reached the road, I spotted a distant car approaching. Relief flooded through me, but before I could wave it down, the vehicle swerved sharply, tires kicking up gravel as it sped past. My stomach dropped. "Did you see that? They didn't even slow down." "They must have seen the wreck and panicked," Sarah suggested, her brow furrowing. "Let's keep walking. We'll find someone." But as we continued down the empty road, an unsettling feeling settled over me. The whispers had faded, but the sense of being watched returned, creeping along my skin. Each time I glanced into the trees, I felt the shadows shift, as if something was moving just beyond my sight. It wasn't long before we reached a small clearing where the road forked. One path led deeper into the woods, while the other stretched toward a distant house barely visible through the trees. A chill ran down my spine as I considered our options. "Let's go to the house," I suggested, pointing. "Maybe someone there can help us." "I don't know, Ethan." Sarah hesitated, glancing at the dark woods. "What if it's empty? Or worse?" "Worse than being stuck out here?" I shot back, frustration bubbling up. "We have to try. I'm not just going to wait and hope for someone to show up." She nodded, albeit reluctantly, and together we made our way toward the house. As we approached, the feeling of dread intensified. It was a dilapidated structure, paint peeling and windows cracked. The air around it felt heavy, suffocating, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for us to cross the threshold. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah whispered, anxiety evident in her voice. "Not really," I admitted, "but we need to see if anyone is home." We stepped onto the porch, the wood creaking under our weight. I knocked on the door, the sound echoing in the stillness. There was no response. I knocked again, louder this time, and still nothing. "Maybe we should just go," Sarah urged, glancing over her shoulder at the trees. But before I could respond, the door creaked open, revealing an elderly woman with wild grey hair and sharp, piercing eyes. She wore a long, tattered dress that seemed to blend into the shadows. "What do you want?" she rasped, her voice gravelly, as if she hadn't spoken in ages. We need help. My car crashed," I started, but she waved a gnarled hand, cutting me off. "Help?" she echoed, her eyes narrowing. "You're too late for help. The woods are hungry tonight." "Woods? What do you mean?" I asked, confusion swirling in my mind. She stepped closer, a strange light flickering in her gaze. They whisper, don't they? They call to you, beckoning you deeper into the dark. You can't trust them. A cold fear gripped me as I exchanged a glance with Sarah. What do you know about it? The woman leaned closer, her breath a sour mix of decay and something else, something ancient. They want you to listen. They want you to stay, but you must resist. Resist what? I pressed, but she merely shook her head, a sad smile playing on her lips. Your time is running out, dear boy. The shadows are hungry, and they've already chosen you. Before I could respond, she stepped back, closing the door with a resounding thud. I stumbled back, the weight of her words crashing down on me. What just happened? Sarah breathed, her eyes wide with fear. I don't know, but we need to get out of here, now. Turning back toward the road, the whispers returned, swirling around us like a tempest. Can you hear me? Echoed through my mind, drowning out my thoughts. The woods seemed to shift, the trees bending and swaying as if alive, as if they were reaching for us. Panic surged through me, and I grabbed Sarah's hand, pulling her back toward the road. But as we ran, the shadows thickened, and the whispers grew louder, wrapping around us like chains. I could feel the darkness closing in, suffocating, and I knew we were no longer just running from the woods. We were running from something far more sinister. With every step, the ground felt less stable, as if the very earth was trying to swallow us whole. The air grew colder, and I could see our breath misting in the chill. We burst onto the road, hearts pounding, but the car was gone. The path stretched endlessly before us, and the trees loomed ominously on either side. I turned to Sarah, desperation clawing at my throat. We can't stay here. We need to find another way out. But as I grabbed her arm, the whispers crescendoed, piercing through the fear. They're coming for you, Ethan. You can't escape. And in that moment, I felt the undeniable truth of it, a deep-seated dread that twisted my insides. The night had a voice of its own, and it was calling for me. We took off running, deeper into the night, uncertainty hanging over us like a shroud, the darkness hungry for our fear. The forest was alive, and it wouldn't rest until it had what it wanted. Little did I know the true horrors were just beginning to unfold, and the shadows held secrets I was not ready to face. We sprinted down the road, adrenaline coursing through my veins. With every step, I could feel the whispers wrapping tighter around me, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. The shadows danced at the periphery of my vision, teasing me with their presence, and I could swear I heard laughter mingling with the rustling leaves. Ethan, we need to stop, Sarah gasped, pulling at my arm. We can't just run forever. No, we have to keep moving, I replied, panic rising in my throat. The weight of the elderly woman's words pressed heavily on my mind. The woods were alive, and they had chosen us. We stumbled onto a narrow path that veered off the road, partially hidden by overgrown brambles and jagged rocks. I hesitated, glancing back toward the trees. What if they're just trying to scare us? What if there's nothing really out here? Maybe, Sarah replied, her voice shaky, but I don't want to find out. Let's just get to a place where we can call for help. I nodded, reluctantly stepping onto the path. It felt wrong somehow, like crossing a threshold into another reality. The atmosphere shifted, the air thickening as we ventured deeper into the woods. The shadows seemed to elongate, reaching out to us, and I could hear the whispers again, echoing in my mind like a broken record. You're too late, Ethan, they taunted. You can't escape your past. Did you hear that? I asked, voice low, my heart racing. What? Hear what? Sarah looked at me, her brow knitted in confusion. The whispers, they're telling me things. A wave of dread washed over me. I felt my grip on reality slipping, like quicksand pulling me under. They know me, they know us. Ethan, stop, you're scaring me. You have to focus, just keep walking. I wanted to argue, to tell her that I was trying, but the words caught in my throat. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, not just with the woods, but with me. The memories of my childhood swirled in my mind like a tempest ready to unleash a storm. I remembered the stories my grandmother used to tell me, tales of lost souls that wandered these woods, trapped between worlds. I'd always dismissed them as mere folklore. But as I stood there, enveloped in darkness, I began to wonder if there was a grain of truth to them. "Do you remember the stories about the woods?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "About how some people disappear and never come back." "Ethan, stop it! This isn't the time for ghost stories," Sarah snapped, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "Maybe it's not just stories," I pressed. "What if those people are still out here? What if they're part of whatever is going on?" "Ethan." She hesitated, her expression shifting as she searched my face. "What are you really saying? What do you think happened to them?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I don't know, but I can feel it. It's like they're all around us, trapped in the shadows, and they want us to join them." Suddenly, Sarah stopped, her eyes widening as if she'd just realized something. "Ethan, what if it's you? What if you're the one who can't let go?" My heart sank at her words. The weight of my past pressed down on me like a physical force, and I felt an unsettling heat rise in my chest. "What are you talking about? I'm not—" "You are," she interrupted, her voice rising in pitch. "Ever since we were kids, you've always had trouble moving on. You never let things go. You always return to the past. Your parents, the accident, everything. It's like you're trying to find something that isn't there anymore." Her words struck a nerve, and I felt a rush of anger and shame. "You don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand how—" But she cut me off again. "I do understand. I've seen you struggle ever since that night. You've been haunted, Ethan, and now it's like you're bringing it all back with you. The whispers, they're a part of you." A silence fell between us, heavy with unspoken truths. I could feel the shadows closing in, their whispers growing louder, echoing my deepest fears. Was she right? Had I been so consumed by my past that I had unwittingly summoned this darkness? "Ethan, please." Sarah's voice softened, and I could see the concern in her eyes. "You need to fight this. Whatever is happening, we can't let it take us. We have to keep moving." I nodded, swallowing hard as I tried to shake off the suffocating weight of my memories. We resumed our hurried pace, the path winding deeper into the woods. The trees closed in around us, their gnarled branches stretching like skeletal fingers, and the whispers grew more insistent, almost pleading. "Ethan," they echoed, "you can't escape. You're one of us now. You belong here." I shook my head violently, trying to block them out. "No, I won't let you take me." But as we ran, a sudden movement caught my eye. A figure darted between the trees, too quick to see clearly. My heart raced. "Did you see that?" I gasped, pulling Sarah closer. "What? See what?" Her voice was laced with panic. "I don't know. Someone was out there, I swear." "Stop it! You're imagining things," she snapped. But there was a tremor in her voice that betrayed her fear. We pressed on, but the deeper we went, the more disoriented I felt. The path twisted unnaturally, and the trees began to close in, blocking out the light. The whispers morphed into a cacophony of voices, each one vying for my attention, each one clawing at my sanity. "Ethan!" Sarah screamed, jerking me out of my daze. "Look!" I followed her gaze and froze. Up ahead, the figure stood waiting, half hidden in the shadows. A chill washed over me, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice trembling. The figure stepped closer, revealing a familiar face. My breath caught in my throat. "Jake?" Jake was my older brother, the one I'd lost in that terrible accident all those years ago. The one whose absence had haunted me since that fateful day. "Ethan," he said, his voice echoing eerily in the silence, "you've come home." "No, you can't be here." I stepped back, panic flooding my senses. "You're gone. "You're dead." "Am I?" he replied, a twisted smile creeping across his face. "You've always felt my presence, haven't you? I've been with you, whispering in your ear, urging you to remember. You're not alone, brother." "Stop!" I shouted, backing away. "You're not real. This can't be happening." But he stepped closer, and the shadows around him seemed to pulse with life. "You wanted to forget, Ethan, but you can't escape the truth. You need to face what you've lost." "Leave him alone," Sarah shouted, stepping protectively in front of me. "You're not real. You're just a trick of the darkness." Jake's laughter rang out, sharp and hollow. "Oh, but Sarah, you're wrong. I am very real, and so are the woods. They feed on fear, on loss. And Ethan has so much to give." The shadows surged forward, swirling around us, and I felt myself being pulled toward Jake. The memories flooded back, the night of the accident playing out in my mind, the screech of tires, the chaos, the moment I realized he was gone. "Ethan!" Sarah cried, reaching for me as I struggled against the darkness. "Don't let it take you!" "No!" I screamed, fighting against the pull of the shadows. "I won't let you win!" As I strained against the darkness, something within me snapped. I could feel the weight of my past, all the grief and pain that had held me captive for so long, but I was not just a victim. I had the power to choose, to face my demons instead of running from them. "Jake!" I shouted, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "You're not my brother anymore. You're just a memory. I won't be held captive by you or this darkness." The shadows recoiled at my words, and I felt a surge of strength course through me. I reached for Sarah, and together we pushed back against the darkness, refusing to give in. With a final scream, I tore myself away from the figure, from my brother's haunting presence, and together we ran. The whispers faded, and the shadows receded as we burst onto a small clearing. But the woods were not done with us yet. Ahead we saw a flickering light, a small cabin nestled among the trees. I felt an overwhelming sense of déjà vu wash over me, as if I had been here before. "Ethan, do you think—" Sarah began, but I could barely hear her over the pounding in my ears. As we approached the cabin, the door creaked open, revealing we stood there for a moment, frozen in the clearing, the flickering light from the cabin casting eerie shadows around us. My heart raced, the remnants of my brother's presence still lingering in the air. I could feel Sarah's hand trembling in mine, her breaths coming in quick, shallow gasps. "Maybe we should just keep going," she whispered, glancing back at the dark woods that loomed behind us. "We can't trust anything here." But something compelled me to move forward. The cabin felt like a beacon, a promise of safety amidst the chaos. The door creaked wider, inviting us in like an old friend. I took a hesitant step forward, my instincts screaming at me to turn back, but I couldn't shake the feeling that answers awaited us inside. "Ethan, wait!" Sarah tugged at my arm, her voice laced with urgency. "What if it's a trap? What if they're waiting for us?" I paused, the weight of her words pressing down on me. I knew she was right. The woods had tried to ensnare us once already. But I also felt the pull of curiosity, the need to uncover whatever secrets this cabin held. Or what if it's not? What if it's the key to understanding all of this? As I pushed the door open, it groaned in protest, revealing a dimly lit interior. Dust motes danced in the air, illuminated by the flickering light of an oil lamp perched on a rickety table. The room was cramped, filled with mismatched furniture and shelves lined with old books and trinkets that seemed to whisper their own stories. "Ethan, I really don't like this," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper as she stepped cautiously inside, eyes darting around. "We could be walking into danger. Or we could find what we need to get out of here," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the racing thoughts in my head. I glanced around, searching for anything that might provide answers. My eyes landed on a cracked mirror hanging on the wall, its surface warped and cloudy. I could barely recognize myself in it, but the reflection of the cabin behind me looked almost alive, shifting and bending like a mirage. "Look at this," I said, gesturing toward the mirror. "It's like the cabin is breathing." Sarah stepped closer, peering into the glass. "Ethan, it's just a mirror. We need to focus on finding a way out of here." I turned away from the mirror, scanning the room. On a nearby shelf, a dusty journal lay open, pages yellowed with age. I reached for it, the leather cover cracking under my fingertips. As I flipped through the pages, a sense of foreboding washed over me. The writing was erratic, filled with frantic scrawls that hinted at a descent into madness. "Ethan, what does it say?" Sarah asked, her voice tense. "Listen to this," I said, reading a passage aloud. "The woods are alive. They feed on our grief, our regrets. They want us to remember, want us to join them in their eternal sorrow." "Gee, great, just great," Sarah muttered, crossing her arms. "That's exactly what we needed to hear." I continued reading, my voice steady despite the growing unease in my stomach. "To escape, one must confront their past. The shadows will reveal the truth, but only if you dare to look." I paused, a chill creeping down my spine. "It's talking about facing our fears, Sarah. It's like it knows what we've been through. And maybe we should just leave the journal," she suggested, her eyes darting toward the door. "It sounds like a warning." "No," I said firmly, feeling a fire ignite within me. "We can't run from this. I can't run from this anymore. I need to know what it means." Before Sarah could protest, I flipped to the last page. It was a drawing, crude but haunting, a figure standing alone in the woods, surrounded by dark tendrils that reached out like claws. My heart raced as I recognized the figure. It looked just like me, only more distorted, more lost. "Ethan, please," Sarah urged, her voice trembling. "This isn't helping us. We're just digging deeper into whatever this is." A sudden noise broke through the tension, a soft thud, followed by a whisper that seemed to echo from the corners of the room. I turned sharply, heart pounding. "Did you hear that?" "What?" she snapped, eyes wide. "Someone's here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I think we're not alone." The air thickened, and I could feel the atmosphere shift. The shadows around us seemed to pulse, alive with an energy that was both terrifying and intoxicating. I took a step back, the journal slipping from my fingers as it landed with a soft thud on the floor. "Ethan, we need to go now," Sarah urged, panic rising in her voice. But before we could move, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang, plunging the room into darkness. The flickering lamp sputtered, casting eerie shapes that danced along the walls. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, each beat echoing like a drum roll before a performance. "Ethan!" Sarah cried, her voice trembling. "What's happening?" "I don't know," I shouted back, my mind racing. "Stay close to me!" The whispers returned, louder now, swirling around us like a tempest. They spoke in a cacophony of voices, overlapping and indistinguishable, each one tugging at my consciousness. "Ethan, face what you've lost. Come home. Join us. Stop it! Stop!" I yelled, clenching my fists as I tried to block out the noise, but it was overwhelming, drowning me in a sea of memories and pain. I could see glimpses of my past flashing before my eyes, my brother's laughter, the way he used to tease me, the final moment I realized he was gone. "Ethan, focus! We can't let them take you!" Sarah shouted, pulling me back to the present. "Remember who you are." Her voice cut through the chaos, anchoring me. I looked at her, seeing the fear in her eyes and the determination etched on her face. She was right. I had to fight back. I couldn't let my past consume me any longer. "Listen to me," I shouted into the darkness. "I am not here to join you. I refuse to be a prisoner of my memories." The shadows recoiled, and the whispers turned into a howl, rising in fury. The lamp flickered violently, casting jagged shadows that threatened to engulf us, but I stood my ground, drawing strength from Sarah's presence. "Ethan!" she yelled, her voice breaking through the chaos. "We need to find a way out." I scanned the room, searching for an escape. My eyes landed on a small window at the far end, barely illuminated by the moonlight streaming through the grime. "There! The window!" "Are you crazy?" Sarah exclaimed, looking back at the door. "What if we can't get out? There's no time to think, we have to jump!" I grabbed her hand, urgency coursing through my veins. Together, we rushed toward the window, but the shadows surged forward, blocking our escape. "You can't leave! You belong to us!" they shrieked, voices melding into a single resonant chorus. "Ethan!" Sarah screamed, pulling me away from the encroaching darkness. "We can't let them win! We have to fight!" I nodded, heart racing as I took a deep breath. On three. 1, 2, 2. It is 3. We threw ourselves at the window, crashing through the glass just as the shadows lunged forward. The world outside erupted into chaos, the cold night air whipping against my face as we tumbled into the underbrush beyond the cabin. We landed hard, the ground jarring beneath us, but we didn't stop. We scrambled to our feet, adrenaline propelling us forward, the whispers fading behind us. "Keep running!" I yelled, my voice hoarse, as we sprinted away from the cabin, the woods closing in around us once more. But as we ran, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was chasing us was still lurking just out of sight, waiting for the moment we would falter. The woods were alive with secrets, and I knew we had only scratched the surface. "Ethan, where do we go now?" Sarah panted, glancing back at the darkened cabin, its silhouette looming ominously against the moonlit sky. I took a deep breath, the fear and uncertainty swirling within me. We keep moving. We have to find a way to break this cycle, to confront whatever is waiting for us. It's not just the woods, it's everything. I could feel the weight of my past pressing down on me, but I also felt the fire of determination igniting within. I had come too far to turn back now, and I couldn't let the shadows win. "Together," I said, looking at Sarah with renewed resolve. "We'll face this together." And with that, we plunged deeper into the woods, the darkness closing in around us as we prepared to confront the truth that awaited. We pushed deeper into the woods, the shadows thickening around us like a living thing. Each step felt heavy with the weight of what we had just escaped, but even more so with the knowledge that we hadn't escaped for good. The whispers still echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the darkness that pursued us. "Ethan," Sarah gasped, her breath coming in ragged bursts as we stumbled over roots and rocks. "What if we're just running in circles? What if we're right back where we started?" I didn't have an answer. I could feel the grip of fear tightening around my chest, squeezing the breath from my lungs. Each rustle in the underbrush sent a jolt of panic coursing through me, but I couldn't let it show. "We'll find a way out," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "We just have to keep moving." But as we moved deeper into the forest, the trees around us seemed to shift, their gnarled branches twisting to block our path. The air grew thick and suffocating, and I could feel the shadows creeping back in, eager to reclaim what they believed was theirs. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness ahead of us, stepping into the faint moonlight. I skidded to a halt, heart racing as I recognized the familiar face. "Jake?" I called out, the name escaping my lips before I could stop myself. My brother's best friend stood before us, looking disheveled and wild-eyed. "Ethan!" he shouted, relief flooding his voice. "You made it! I was starting to think." But before he could finish, the air shifted again, and I felt an ominous presence behind me. The shadows surged forward, tendrils reaching out as if they could sense the vulnerability in the moment. "Jake, watch out!" I yelled, but it was too late. The darkness enveloped him, pulling him into its depths with a terrifying swiftness. "No!" I lunged forward, but the shadows were too strong, dragging him away from us. I could hear his screams echoing through the trees, a chilling reminder of the fate that awaited us if we didn't act. "Ethan, we have to go," Sarah shouted, pulling at my arm. "We can't save him." But I couldn't abandon him, not after everything. "Jake," I cried, desperation clawing at my throat. "Fight it. We'll find you." "Ethan, please!" Sarah's voice broke through the haze of panic. "We can't help him if we're swallowed up too." I hesitated, torn between the urge to save my brother's friend and the instinct to protect ourselves. The shadows writhed and twisted around us, a dark tide threatening to pull us under. "Ethan!" Jake's voice came back, strained and distant. "You have to confront it. You can't run from your past. It's the only way." His words hit me like a lightning bolt, igniting something deep within me. The woods wanted me to face my demons, to confront the pain I had buried for too long. I looked at Sarah, seeing the fear in her eyes, but I also saw determination. "Jake's right," I said, my voice steadying. "We can't keep running. We have to confront whatever this is, together." "Are you sure?" she asked, uncertainty flickering across her face. I nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. If we don't face it, it will keep coming for us. We have to take a stand. The shadows coalesced around us, forming a swirling mass of darkness. "Join us, Ethan," they whispered, their voices merging into a haunting melody. "You belong with us. Embrace your sorrow." "No!" I shouted, standing my ground. "I won't let you take me." The shadows recoiled, and for a moment I felt a surge of power. I turned to Sarah, gripping her hand tightly. "We can do this. We need to confront our pasts, together." As if sensing our resolve, the darkness thickened, shifting into a shape that resembled a figure, a twisted version of myself. It loomed before us, eyes glowing with an otherworldly. The figure before me twisted and contorted, its features a grotesque mirror of my own. I could feel the shadows whispering secrets into my ear, dredging up memories I had long buried. "You can't escape who you are, Ethan," it taunted, voice dripping with disdain. "You've run from your past, but it always comes back. You'll never be free." I clenched my fists, heart racing. "I'm not afraid of you!" I shouted, though my voice wavered, betraying my uncertainty. The darkness surged, and I felt the weight of my past crashing down on me like a tidal wave. Memories flooded my mind, moments of failure, regret, and loss. I saw my father's disappointed gaze, my mother's tears, and the faces of friends I had pushed away in times of struggle. "Face it, Ethan," the figure hissed, stepping closer. "You're nothing but a coward. Running and hiding won't change your truth." "No!" I exclaimed, forcing myself to take a step forward. Each movement felt like wading through molasses, but I refused to back down. "I won't let you control me anymore." Sarah squeezed my hand tighter, her presence grounding me. "Ethan," she urged, her voice soft yet insistent, "you're stronger than this. Remember who you are." I glanced at her, and in that moment I saw not just fear, but fierce determination. Her eyes locked onto mine, igniting a fire within me. I took a deep breath, a surge of clarity piercing through the haze of despair. "Everything you've taken from me," I said, my voice steady now. "I reclaim it." As I spoke, I felt a warmth spreading through my body, a light pushing back against the shadows. The figure recoiled, its form wavering as if caught in a storm. I could hear Jake's distant voice echoing in my mind, urging me to confront the darkness head-on. "Embrace your sorrow," it taunted again, but this time I could see the cracks forming in its facade. "No," I replied, my voice rising above the shadows' whispers. "I won't be defined by my pain. I will face it, not let it consume me." With those words, I felt a surge of energy coursing through me. I closed my eyes, envisioning the memories I had lost to fear, the laughter, the love, the hope. They flooded back, wrapping around me like a protective shield. When I opened my eyes, the darkness trembled, swirling and flickering like a dying flame. "You think you can defeat us?" the figure screeched, its voice cracking. "We're a part of you." "Not anymore!" I shouted, and with a final surge of defiance, I thrust my hand forward. The light within me burst forth, illuminating the shadows, scattering them like leaves in a storm. I felt the release of something heavy within me, a weight lifting as the darkness shrieked and dissolved, leaving only a faint whisper in the night air. As the last remnants of the shadows faded, I collapsed to my knees, gasping for breath. The forest around us felt different now, lighter somehow. The oppressive weight had lifted, but I could still sense the echoes of what had just transpired. "Ethan!" Sarah knelt beside me, her expression a mix of relief and concern. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," I replied, panting. "I think so." I looked up, catching a glimpse of Jake's silhouette lingering just beyond the trees. "Jake!" I called, voice hoarse. He stepped forward, looking more like himself, though the wildness in his eyes hadn't fully faded. "You did it, man. You faced it. I knew you could." But his words rang hollow as realization hit me. "What about you? Are you okay?" I asked, my heart sinking at the thought of leaving him behind. "I'll be fine," he said, though I could see the shadows still flickering at the edges of his being. "But we have to stick together. There's still something out there. It's not over." Sarah exchanged a look with me, and I felt the weight of her worry. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Jake hesitated, glancing back at the darkness that lingered at the edges of the clearing. "When I was taken, I saw things, horrible things. The shadows aren't just a manifestation of our fears. They're connected to something bigger, something ancient." "Ancient?" I repeated, my brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" "There's a reason this place feels alive," Jake said, his voice low. "There's a force here that feeds on fear and sorrow. We may have pushed it back, but it's not gone, it's just waiting." A chill ran down my spine at his words. I looked around, the trees casting long shadows in the moonlight, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The forest felt alive, breathing, watching. "We can't stay here," Sarah urged, her eyes darting nervously. "We need to find a way back to civilization." I nodded, but a nagging feeling settled in my gut. "What if it follows us?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It might," Jake admitted, his expression grim, "but we can't let it control our lives. We need to find others, warn them, figure out what we're dealing with." As we stood, the three of us connected by shared trauma and newfound resolve, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The woods had awakened something within us, but it had also exposed the scars we carried. I felt the emotional weight still lingering, each of us marked by our confrontation with the shadows. I took a deep breath, the cool air filling my lungs, determined to face whatever lay ahead. "Let's move. Together." As we began to walk back, the trees seemed to shift and sigh around us, the path ahead illuminated by the remnants of our light. But even as we stepped away from the darkness, I couldn't help but glance back, the echoes of Jake's warnings reverberating in my mind. There were still mysteries to unravel, and I knew that the shadows wouldn't rest until they had claimed what they were owed. And deep down, I felt the stirring of a new fear, one that whispered of the darkness still lurking within me, and the questions that remained unanswered. What had we really confronted? What other secrets did the shadows hide? As we pushed through the underbrush, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and dread intertwine within me. This wasn't over, not yet. The forest may have released us, but the journey was only beginning. As we trudged deeper into the woods, the darkness felt less like an entity pressing in on us and more like a palpable tension that hung in the air. Each step echoed with uncertainty, a reminder of the shadows we had just faced. The forest, Once a sanctuary of solace, now loomed ominously around us, its twisted branches whispering secrets I had no desire to hear. "Where do we even go from here?" I murmured, glancing at Sarah and Jake, both of whom seemed to wrestle with their own thoughts. The light we had fought so hard to summon still flickered within me, yet I could feel the shadows clinging to the edges of my mind, remnants of fear that threatened to seep back in. Jake kicked a stone, sending it skittering across the path. "We need to find a way out. There has to be a town or something nearby. We can't let this place hold us captive any longer." His voice was laced with urgency, but beneath it lay an undercurrent of uncertainty. "What if it follows us?" Sarah's voice trembled as she spoke, her grip tightening around my arm. What if it's not just the shadows we need to worry about?" I swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling heavily in my chest. "It's not just the shadows," I agreed, my mind racing back to Jake's warnings about the force lurking in the forest. "We need to stay vigilant. Whatever we faced back there was only a fraction of what lies ahead." As we continued through the trees, I felt the familiar pang of dread tighten around my heart. The memories of our confrontation still lingered, a reminder of how close I had come to being consumed by my own darkness. But now, it felt like a distant echo, slowly fading as we moved forward. Suddenly, a rustling sound broke through the stillness, and I froze. My breath caught in my throat as I turned to the source of the noise. The shadows shifted, and I could have sworn I saw something dart between the trees, a flicker of movement that sent chills racing down my spine. "Did you see that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible, but both Sarah and Jake were already on high alert. "Yeah," Jake replied, his eyes narrowing. "We're not alone." I felt a surge of adrenaline course through me, a primal instinct to run, but I stood my ground. We can't let fear take hold again. We faced it once. We can do it again. Just as I spoke, a figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette cloaked in shadow, its features indistinguishable. My heart raced as I stepped back, ready to fight or flee, but as it drew closer, I realized it was not a threat, but a reflection of our own fears, materialized into form, a shadow of what we had just defeated. "Ethan," it whispered, my name twisted into a mockery that sent shivers down my spine. "You think you've won? You've only just begun to understand the darkness within you." I shook my head, trying to dispel the fear clawing at my throat. "You're nothing but an illusion. I've faced you before, and I will do it again." The figure laughed, a sound that echoed eerily through the trees. "You cannot escape your past, Ethan. It is woven into the fabric of your being. You think you've pushed us back, but we are always here, lurking in the shadows of your mind." Sarah stepped closer, her eyes blazing with determination. "You don't own him. He's more than just his mistakes. We're stronger together, and we won't let you take him again." The figure glared at her, its form flickering like a candle in the wind. "You're all fools," it hissed, a smirk twisting its features. "You can't fight what you truly are." But as it spoke, I felt that flicker of light inside me reignite, fueled by the bonds we had forged through our struggles. "You're wrong," I declared, my voice ringing with newfound strength. "We are not defined by our fears. We are shaped by the choices we make." With a surge of will, I stepped forward, drawing on the light within me, feeling it intertwine with Sarah's steady resolve and Jake's unyielding spirit. Together, we formed a barrier against the shadows, pushing back against the figure that had once loomed so large in our lives. The darkness writhed and twisted, flashing with bursts of light as we channeled our collective strength. "You're nothing," I shouted, feeling the weight of my past lift as the figure began to dissolve, its form breaking apart like mist in the morning sun. But even as it faded, I felt an unsettling sense of foreboding claw at my insides. The shadows may have retreated, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper, something more sinister lurked just beyond our sight. "We need to keep moving," I urged, glancing at the path ahead, which felt both familiar and foreign. "This isn't over." As we pressed forward, I could sense the forest shifting around us, the trees bending and warping as if alive with possibilities. The path twisted and turned, leading us deeper into the heart of the woods. With every step, I felt the balance of light and dark within me, a constant reminder of the battle I had fought and the choices I still had to make. The shadows may have retreated for now, but they were a part of me, a reality I couldn't escape. And as much as I longed for closure, I knew that this journey would not end here. It felt cyclical, as if the forest itself had entangled us in its web, drawing us back into its depths to confront the mysteries that remained. "Do you think we'll ever find a way out?" Sarah asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty as she glanced at the darkened trees around us. I opened my mouth to reassure her, but the truth was, I didn't know. The woods felt endless, their secrets hidden beneath layers of shadows and memories. I had fought against the darkness, but now I felt it stirring again, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Maybe the way out isn't a destination," I said slowly, pondering the nature of our journey. "Maybe it's about understanding what we carry with us. We have to confront it, not just run from it." Jake nodded, a flicker of understanding passing between us. "We'll figure it out, together." As we walked further into the forest, the shadows danced around us, teasing and beckoning. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, but this time, it didn't feel suffocating. Instead, it felt like an invitation, an open door to explore the depths of our own fears and desires. And as the night deepened, I realized that this was just the beginning. The shadows would always be there, whispering their secrets. But now, I was ready to listen. As we moved through the darkened trees, I felt a sense of possibility swell within me. This journey was far from over, and though the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, I knew we would face it together. The forest, alive with mystery, awaited us, and I stepped forward, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, for better or worse.